Right. Okay. Hey, we are live. Hello, LinkedIn friends. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Instagram. My name is Brittany Cole, and I am so excited to be tonight. Listen, we are diving into a conversation that I believe is a game changer for um right now, right now. And so if you're new here or if you're like, what's going on? It's kind of late to be doing a live on, especially on LinkedIn. But what you may not know, right? If you are into LinkedIn the way that I am, it's probably my favorite social media platform. And so if you dig into the back end and you're serious about your content and you're looking at your analytics, professionals are up at this time of the evening, okay, at 6 p.m. up and scrolling, okay. And for the business owners out there, just a little tidbit. This wasn't even in the notes, but if you own a business and specifically if you do B2B business, your buyer is on LinkedIn on the weekend, okay. So I know I have quite a bit of CEO engagement that happens on Saturdays and on Sunday afternoons, like that mid 3, 4, 5 o'clock hour. So just a little bit of extra tidbit for the other founders that are on. But listen, what you may not know, and what I think I have here, you can see on the screen, and what I want y'all to know over on Instagram is that. And if you're listening in, you already know this. I'm the host of the Let's Thrive Together podcast. So you may be watching me live right now. And if you're listening into the podcast, you're like, wait a minute, live, what's going on? So for the month of February, we are doing something new, okay, and I'm so excited about it. We are recording live episodes. Yes, you heard me right. Live in real time, straight up on the platform. Okay. So this is going directly to Instagram, or not to Instagram. It is going directly to Instagram, but it's going directly to YouTube. It's going directly to LinkedIn. And then our team will do a little bit of editing on the audio to make sure that you get this in a reasonable time frame. Give us about 48 to 72 business hours to get this up to you on the actual audio podcast. But if you watch us, if you watch the show again on YouTube, so make sure that you subscribe to the Let's Thrive Together podcast on YouTube. This is available in real time. It's available in real time. It's also available in real time on my personal social media page, my personal Instagram page at Brittany N. Cole. So we're trying something new. I don't know if we'll keep it. We'll see. If you are not subscribed to the show, if you're watching us, make sure that you subscribe. We drop a new episode every single Tuesday. In fact, drum roll, please. We just dropped our 50th episode this week. And I literally just realized that while I was trying to check which episode actually dropped this week. So and I'm so excited. It's like, okay, yes, this is perfect because one of our top clients at Career Thrivers is the guest on the 50th episode. So you got to go over to your Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube to see who exactly that is. You'll learn all about what they're doing, the transformation that we're partnering with them on inside of their organization, and the impact that we make to help create a culture where everyone can thrive at corporations. So make sure you head on over and subscribe. I will tell you the title of the episode. The title of the episode is about casting vision and keeping leaders accountable to it. Casting vision and keeping leaders accountable to it, episode 50. You do not want to miss it. And a little bit of a case study built in there too to share more about the work that we get to do at Career Thrivers. Episode 49 is about redefining career and leadership coaching. And episode 48, I'm just letting you know about the last 3 episodes. That's all. Episode 48 was about developing a wealth mindset. So listen, make sure that you're subscribed to the Let's Thrive Together podcast, wherever you like to listen. And of course, you can watch every week on YouTube. All right. Awesome. So let's get into this conversation. Again, we're trying something new. Listen, and as a former marketer, one of the things that I value most at the top of the list, I'll say, when it comes to my time that I spent as a marketer inside of corporate is the fact that you don't really know until you test it. Like any good marketer will tell you, listen, we're gonna do our due diligence. We're gonna run the quant test, the qual testing. We're gonna A/B test it. We're gonna see. We're gonna trial it and see if it works. But you really don't know, right? With all the best research in the world until you put it out there. So I have been thinking about and talking about upping our number of episodes that we drop per week on the show to 2 per week. And it looks great on paper. It looks great in a PowerPoint deck, right? But it's totally different when you do it, right? So it's like, listen, there's no better time than February 1st. I mean, hello. There's no better time than February 1st. It's February 1st. Happy Black History Month. Happy American History Month, if that's all right. And we're gonna get into it. And if you're not familiar with the our show, listen, the Let's Thrive Together podcast is all about helping you to thrive in your life and career with authenticity, purpose, courage, and joy. So that is why we invest in this show. That is why I show up to host it. That is why our guests say yes to us. That is why corporations like Bank of America, Bridgestone, Morgan Stanley, and others have said yes to partner with us to make these episodes happen. So listen, if you are someone who is like, yeah, that matters to me. Thriving in my life matters. Thriving in my career, thriving in my business matters. And thriving means that I'm able to show up with authenticity. I'm able to show up with purpose. I'm able to show up with courage. I'm able to show up and have joy in the work that I get to do, not just what I have to do. Then this is the place for you. So make sure you subscribe and join us. All right. So the title of this episode, y'all, let's get into it. And I just have a feeling, like, I just have this feeling. That's why I really wanted to do the second episode. I have a feeling that these segments, these live episodes that we do, are going to be a little bit more personal. They're going to be a little bit more like straight talk, straight to it. Okay. Especially if you're watching this on YouTube, not a lot of pre and post and ad drops, and we get right into the conversation. So today I want to talk about this topic that is actually the tagline for an organization that I'm a part of. So I spent all of last week, yeah, vast majority of last week in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm a Nashville native, so I'm sitting in Nashville, Tennessee. That's home. If you've been tuned into the show, you know that already. If not, make sure you subscribe, join us on the journey. And I'm sitting in this conference. So Traffic Sales and Profit is the name of the organization. If you are a Black entrepreneur or a corporate leader or government leader that is serious and that you visit trafficsalesandprofit.com. They had their 2024 game plan. Think of it as like a conference, live in-person experience last week. So I was there all week. And one of the many startling insights that just really resonated with me and like got locked into my brain is the fact that in Atlanta last week, in Atlanta, now I live in Nashville, Tennessee, in Atlanta last week, they celebrated the 50th, the 50th anniversary of their first Black mayor. 50th, 50. Now, I live in a city that I love, a city that I go hard for. I am a native Nashvilleian, a product of Nashville Metro Public Schools. I actually met the man I married, Joseph, and I, my husband, we met in high school at John Overton High School. So I love Nashville. Nashville has never had a Black mayor. And so when I think about a lot of the differences that I have observed while being a part of this accelerator program and differences that I've observed being in the entrepreneurial ecosystem really globally and having great connections with leaders who are building 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, many of which are already there and have done it. I met an entrepreneur, a 9-figure entrepreneur last week at this same event. And it's an incredible community. But the experience is different, right? And so we had our mastermind day on the first day, on Wednesday, and Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms came in and she talked with us in the TSP mastermind about her journey as a leader. And it was a powerful session. And she was just talking about this sense of always believing that she belonged in any space because she grew up in a space where when she looked around her city, not only was the mayor Black, but her principal was Black, her teachers were Black, the bankers were Black, the grocery store managers were Black. Like she lived in this environment where, and she talked about a time when she realized this wasn't the norm in other places. and what that meant for her, right? And just the realization of there are people that have grown up that have lived the opposite experience, right? And so when I think about not only the work that we get to do at Career Thrivers, but also this time that we're in of a lot of challenge around inclusion and equity. And I intentionally say the I and the E because no one is doing diversity work. So anytime I get to educate on the fact that diversity is just a fact, I know we like to talk about it, right? But it just is. So if I were sitting here and you were looking at me and there were 10 other Black women, guess what would be present on the screen? Diversity, not because we're Black, but because there are differences on other dimensions, even though we look the same in terms of our racial identity, right? So diversity is a fact, but inclusion is the act, and equity is in the stats. Equity is what we're always trying to drive. So there's all this conversation around DEI right now, right? It's February the 1st. I'm recording this live, and I can't help but think, coming off the heels of an organization that I'm proud to say, and they don't say this, but I haven't seen, and somebody, if I got the stat wrong, let me know, okay? But of the entrepreneurship groups, accelerators that I've seen, I have not found one that would dispute this, right? Or that would challenge this. But Traffic Sales and Profit has the largest group of 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs. And their impact has been tremendous. And so they have this tagline called "We Are the Ones." And I wanted to talk to you about it today because I believe that mindset, like, that's more than a slogan, right? It's more than a slogan. It is a mindset, it is a belief, and also, I believe it is a challenge within the Black community. All right. So, on this episode, and I told y'all, I don't know, these live episodes, I might get into a little bit of trouble, but authenticity is a value of mine. Transparency is a value of mine. Without transparency, there is no transformation. So, what I believe is this is an opportunity for me to talk to other Black professionals, other Black leaders, and allies. Listen, you're welcome. I hope that you stay on. I hope that you share this with someone that you know. But I wanted to talk about self advocacy today. I want to talk about unity today. I want to talk about the power of the collective today and the power to take collective action within the Black community in order to advance America, all of us, right? In order to advance all of us. And so I think this is an important conversation because I have had, and I thought I would be nervous having this conversation publicly in this way, but I'm not. I actually feel um excited to have it because I think it's a conversation that's long overdue in a public setting. I've certainly had countless conversations like this in private where entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, nonprofit executives, right? Industry agnostic, sector agnostic, have had experiences where we are our own worst enemy. What do I mean by that? Where other Black people are the biggest barrier between where you are and where you're trying to go. Now, the good thing about this being a podcast episode, if I can digress just for a moment, is that you don't have to raise your hand. If you're watching this live and you want to comment, listen, I want to include you in the conversation. That is one of the benefits of being live, but I can't exactly see your face, and you can just nod, okay, nod, and we won't see you. But I have certainly had experiences and know many leaders. I've had 2 conversations on this topic today, which to me felt like confirmation on this topic, where it's like it's us getting in our own way, right? Like the roadblock, the hurdle, whether it is an entrepreneur that is looking to do a deal with the company, or whether it is someone else that works in your same organization, there is sometimes within our community, and there's a lot of historical context around why, which I won't get into, but um we can be the biggest gatekeepers, the biggest naysayers, and we operate sometimes from this sense of a scarcity mindset. And so when I think about this being the kickoff of Black History Month, the kickoff of a powerful foundation setting for American history, right? Whether states want to pretend that it's not relevant or not needed in schools. Facts are facts, right? When we think about our ancestors' legacy and the groundwork that has been laid for advocacy, for unity, from Harriet Tubman to leaders that led the civil rights movement, of which Nashville, Tennessee was a very, very significant geographical player in the work of the civil rights movement, right? I'm not here to give you a history lesson because I think we do a lot, if not too much of that when it comes to Black History Month. But what I am here to do, hopefully, is for this conversation to be a call to action to say, what can we do to stop waiting on other people to do what we can do? So what can I do, right, as a Black woman, as a woman who has quite a bit of experience when it comes to leading within a corporate setting, right? A Fortune 100 company, someone who has experience partnering with similar companies now as an entrepreneur, right? What are things that I can do? What are things that you can do to advocate for another Black professional? I think so many, and I've seen so much content even today because this is Black History Month, right? Around what organizations can do for Black, whether it's creators or business owners or leaders, what they need to stop doing, right? And I think so often what's left out of that conversation is what can we do to show up and be better for one another? And so when I think about Black advocacy, right? And what that looks like and what it can look like. One, I believe that it's powerful, right? In the first place, I would encourage you to be a better advocate of is yourself. I can't tell you how many times at Career Thrivers we partner with organizations to do leadership development. And when it comes to navigating, particularly navigating inside of an organization, but I think that this is also true when it comes to entrepreneurs, we leave so much on the table when it comes to the power of advocating for ourselves. Listen, I know you might be waiting on your manager to affirm that you're ready for the next level, right? Or the next promotion, or you may be waiting on the opportunity for, the media outlet to come to you and say, "Hey, we want to feature you in this article." But please do not be mistaken. You are your best advocate, right? And so, in order to be a better advocate of self, first, it's about one, knowing our worth, being clear on our identity, understanding our rights and responsibilities, and then committing to using our voice to make demands. And I know we don't like to use that word. We don't like to use that word, right? Especially, I would say, like in the workforce context. Like we don't like to use that word. And especially if you layer on the element, particularly for women, and I would say for Black men as well, right? Because there's so many stereotypical assumptions around our aggression or us being aggressive, right? That sometimes keep us from advocating for ourselves. I was having a conversation with a leader today, um, helping them to see the leverage that they had in a particular situation. I'm like, listen, like do you see the way that this deck is stacked? Like I know you're getting pressure, but you're in a position to push back on the pressure that you're getting because of the leverage that you have in the work that you do, right? And so the first step of self-advocacy really is wrapped up in emotional intelligence. It's wrapped up in one, you having a level of self-awareness to recognize that if I just take a step back, and it's easy to do, like I'm right there with you, right? It's easy to get into the minutia of the day to day, feel the pressure of people that maybe don't want you to thrive in the role that you're in, or, try to set traps for you not to be successful. Like we're just having a real conversation. That's real. That happens, right? In workplaces, especially. But it's important sometimes for you to step back from all of that and say, okay, if I take a look at the impact that I make on the work that I'm doing, if I take a look at my role and responsibilities, if I take a look at my contribution to this team, right? What are the points of leverage that I have for me to ask for what I want? And oftentimes, what many of us find is that we haven't even made the ask to know whether or not we get a yes, right? So a lot of our lack of self-advocacy has to do with fear, or what my dad would tell my brothers and I growing up, fear stands for false evidence appearing real, right? Like what we're scared of is not even real. What's a way to test that? Well, the thing that you are nervous about, have you experienced it? Like, has that been your actual experience? Like, did you make the ask and then your manager told you no? Did you pitch the company and they came back and said no? Right? Sometimes, if we're honest, the answer is no. Right? It's like I've let the fear keep me from even trying to move in this direction. So you don't even have any leg to stand on to actually advocate for yourself because you haven't made a move. Right? So the first step of being of us let me be clear. The first step of Black people being a better advocate for other Black people is for us to be better advocates for ourselves, right? That's the first step. Regardless of your current life, career, or business context, whether you are leading a company, leading a business unit inside of a company, right? Or you work at an organization, whatever that looks like for you, but how can you be a better advocate for yourself? And that might also mean that you need to do some educating, right? That you may need to, lean into a coach, or you might need to lean into some professional development in order for you to not only gain the courage, but maybe also the confidence around what that looks like. And as we do that, as we build our emotional intelligence to not only see ourselves, it also helps us then to be better about our social awareness. And this is really social awareness. The social awareness part, I would say there are three steps, or the three areas, right? When I think about Black people being better advocates for other Black people, right? Four layers. So I just talked about one though, self-awareness. And the other step is um social awareness, right? So having the political savvy to be able to read the room, right? To be able to understand who has power and who has influence, right? And sometimes those are different, right? So you can have people within an organization, within a community that have positional power, meaning they have a title by which they garner their power to make decision. And then you have people that have influence, right? Um, when they speak, people listen, right? And in a beautiful world, those two things would be aligned, but they are not always, right? Right. That's why we get to do the work that we do, right? Because sometimes there are people who have the positional power. People move because of the title that they have, but not because they're influenced or inspired to act, right? Because that leader has influence. And so when we think about the Black community being a better advocate for ourselves, we have to have that social awareness. But then that relationship capital becomes really important, right? As you become more emotionally intelligent to understand the context around you, then how do you leverage certain relationships based on that knowledge, right? And then the last part of it, I would say, is for us to actually do it. And this is where you got to have a little bit of skin in the game, because I believe one of the reasons why, in some scenarios, right, we aren't better advocates of one another is because we're holding on to a scarcity mindset. And I'm not disregarding the historical and um, social context that makes it easy to fall into those mindsets, right? Let me be very clear, right? I'm very well aware that, you know, as a collective, we didn't just wake up with, what some might say is a crabs in the barrel mentality, or this thought that there can only be one of us at the top, or this mindset that if I advocate for this person to be at the table, that's going to jeopardize my seat. That's a real thing, y'all. Like, I don't think that we talk about it again publicly and openly enough. We have a lot of side conversations about that. But um I can recall, and shout out to Minda Harts for all the work that she does. I was in a session with her. It's probably been years ago. I feel like it was in the pandemic. It was a virtual that I was sitting in, and I was reading a lot of the comments about, advocating for women of color in the workplace. And there were so many women that were commenting on the fact that their biggest challenge in the workplace wasn't a white male or a white woman. It was another Black woman, right? Or another woman of color. And I've had experiences like that. I have several friends who have had experiences like that. And I really believe one of the reasons that is tied to this scarcity mindset, this belief that, because I have ascended to a certain level within an organization or a certain, level of influence within a community or whatever the case might be, particularly when you add on this generational diversity layer. And that's why I started out by saying, when we talk about diversity, most people are uneducated around what that means. It just means difference. It does not mean Black. Now, the language is being weaponized right now as almost like especially the DEI acronym, to almost be like a dog whistle for Black. But that's really not what diversity means. It just means difference. So, um, there certainly have been women who have had that experience of like, you know, my biggest challenge is someone that looks like me, and what do I do in that instance where, you know, because I might be the only, at the table, or there might only be, you know, one or a handful of Black people that are leading in a certain business unit or a certain division of an organization, right? That the generational dimension of diversity can creep in, where you have younger talent, whether it's Gen Z or whether it's millennial, right? That might be moving at a more accelerated rate, right? That may be advancing, especially millennial talent and Gen Z now too, but maybe advancing, faster than it took someone that may have been in the seat longer. And that thought or feeling of my seat being threatened, right? My role being threatened can be very real, right? And for, I always, man, it listen, it I always feel some kind of way, I'll put it that way. Like, it really hurts me when I hear stories like that, when I hear, especially women who have had less than an ideal experience, especially in the workplace. And then when you get into the weeds of their story as they're sharing it with you, it's another woman that looks like them, right? And so I believe that is why these kinds of conversations are needed, because our strength as a community is really magnified in our unity. Like, it's magnified in us achieving more as a collective, right? And overcoming barriers in unity than us having this scarcity mindset approach that there can only be one of us. And so I want to challenge us, right? I don't want these live episodes to be too long. So as we wrap up here, and if you're on live, if you have a question, one, drop your first name in the comments so we can get to know each other on a first name basis. And if you're listening in, I encourage you to join us on this month. So for the month of February, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be going live on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and I believe on Facebook as well, for these live episodes. So feel free to join us live. But I want to leave this with you. I want to leave this thought with you. Right? Oftentimes when we talk about allies, we talk about, or we think about, right, the opposite primary dimension of diversity. Okay. So stay with me for just a second. So the reason why I say diversity is a fact is because diversity just means difference, right? So any DEI practitioner or person that may lead this work inside of your organization knows that there are two dimensions of diversity. So the first dimension is what we usually think about when we think about diversity. So it's diversity. Think of it as diversity that you can see. Okay, so race, right? Um, Gender with some nuance, right? Um, but those things are primary diversity. Age is in there. I said race and culture, right? So those areas of primary diversity. Right? Secondary diversity are those things that you can't see. So think things like tenure or your experience, or, you hear some leaders talk about diversity of thought, right? So the way that you think, or the experiences that you have that inform the way that you think. Tenure is a big one that's often missed when we're having conversations about diversity. So how long you've been at an organization, Also the breadth and depth of your experience at an organization. Have you worked in um, different channels of the organization, different business units, different functions of business? That type of diversity is also good to have a sense of. So, diversity means all of those things, right? Age is included in that primary dimension. And so usually when we think of allies, we think of the opposite, right? So when we say, oh, if we're talking about, March is Women's History Month, right? So we need better allies, and people's minds automatically go to what men need to do, right? And I'm often the one in the group or in the room that's saying, yeah, that's we need men to be allies, but there's also enough women around here where as women we could be better allies of other women. So I say the same thing to Black people, to Black professionals, to Black entrepreneurs. How can we, how can you, how can I be a better ally for other Black people, right? When we're thinking about allyship, let's not only focus on what can be done outside of our community, but let's look within, right? Let's not overlook that true allyship is often about us thinking about the impact that we can make, right? To amplify our voice for someone else. So, what might that look like? Well, it might look like if you're more senior in your organization for Black History Month, right? How can you advocate for another Black professional that might be more junior or maybe in the mid tier of their career? Right? That might look like I have a calendar invite on my calendar for this month every week to find a way to amplify 2 to 3 Black owned businesses. This is what I mean by we are the ones, right? This is why this is such a mindset shift. Like, what are we doing? Not waiting on others to decide. And that work, and I'm not discounting that work. That work is necessary. But what I do want to say is, how can we focus on within the community being better to, for, and about one another, right? So weekly, I sent 2 emails today. Hey, here's somebody that you should know. Here's a corporation that I have a connection with. I know this leader. Sent that leader an email and said, hey, here's a business that aligns with your mission. I believe that you need to know who they are, right? And here in the CC line is a way, someone that you can connect directly with that organization, right? And whatever that might look like for you, I'm sharing some practical off the top of my head ways that might look. But if you think about your own sphere of influence, this is what I will leave you with, right? And I appreciate the allies for staying on, right? The allies who are of other races and ethnicities. Let me be specific here, right? That have stayed on for this conversation to Black people, okay? But I believe oftentimes, again, for Black History Month, oftentimes conversations that Black people are having are not to other Black people. We're talking to everybody else and not us. This conversation is for us, okay? So I want to challenge you with that. Like, what can you do this month, this February, right? And next, right? But what can you either start doing or elevate to a higher degree, right? Ways to be a better advocate for other Black people, another Black person, another Black business within the community, right? Instead of waiting for someone else to come save us, to come do it for us, to come pick us. We are the ones. So shout out to Traffic Sales and Profit for, again, one, being an amazing community of entrepreneurs under incredible leadership. I often say, like, I invited 2 of my good friends. Shout out to Shayna that joined the mastermind, leading executive director over at Corner to Corner, and Brittany D. Morton that leads Saved in the City. They both joined me, and I when they got there, I guess like maybe like the second day, I'm like, do you get what I was saying now? Like, it's so hard to describe the experience at a traffic sales and profit event. And so again, if you are an entrepreneur that's listening, TSP Live is the next one. I believe there's a wait list up. Their tickets go on sale next week for that conference. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, and you don't want to miss it. Magic Johnson will be back. Billionaire Magic Johnson will be in the building. He is the keynote, and there'll be other incredible speakers and stuff that are there. But that mantra that they have really built a culture around, that we are the ones, like, it is so deeply embedded in the culture of that organization and in the culture of the entrepreneurs that they're equipping. And so I want to leave you with that. We are the ones. So let's commit to actionable steps to strengthen and advocate for the Black community, and to be in unity with one another. It might even look like mentoring, a Black student or a younger Black professional, right? Or another Black business owner, right? But let's look for ways to engage with one another, to support one another, to advocate for one another as we reflect on Black history, on the shoulders that we are standing on, but also as we continue to thrive together and to make not only Black history, but American and world history as well. So, listen, if this conversation resonated with you, make sure you share it with someone, tag them in the post. Make sure you subscribe to the Let's Thrive Together podcast, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you go to let'sThriveTogether.com, you can get a free guide that is directly from me. It is a robust blueprint that we probably should be charging for. It is that good. But it is the literal roadmap that we walk leaders through on how you build an authentic personal brand. So how do you show up as you to thrive in your life and career with authenticity, purpose, courage, and joy? All right. So Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen, make sure you subscribe to the Let's Thrive Together podcast. And until next time, let's thrive together. Take care, y'all. Bye.